This will be one of the greatest cities in the Dominion. It needs a name befitting its dignity and importance. I will name it Vancouver." So said William van Horne. Later, he claimed it was a good name because people in the East knew approximately where it was. But this was a defense, not a reason. Van Horne worked for Donald A. Smith, Lord Strathcona, building the Canadian Pacific Railway. He had two symbolic places to name, its nexus and its terminus. For the nexus, he turned to Smith. When things looked hopeless, Lord Strathcona would shout his clan's battle cry, "Craigellachie." Did he also inspire the name of the terminus? Smith worked for Honorable Hudson Bay Company, sponsored by his uncle John Stuart, administrator of New Caledonia. Stuart led the 1st Brigade down the Columbia River and supported the creation of the new capital of Columbia, Vancouver. Smith worked directly for William Connolly, father-in-law of James Douglas, then acting governor in Vancouver. Connolly had led the 1st Brigade to Vancouver. Smith pointed out to Van Horne where his other uncle had drowned on Brigade to Vancouver. The old Vancouver had been the original terminal city, where brigades from the east ended their journeys. It had been the capital of the British-governed territory of Columbia, but was abandoned in 1860 after the border treaty. The leadership in Victoria were well aware of the name Vancouver and its connotations of capital. The bill to name it was the most controversial of 1886. Americans had changed the name of Old Vancouver to Columbus, then back again. They were against the proposal. Despite the opposition, Van Horne persisted. Supportive politicians got streets named after them, like Drake, Davie, Robson, Dunsmuir, Smythe. Did Van Horne call the terminus Vancouver as a tribute to Lord Strathcona, this name that had loomed so large in his life? Was the railroad like a modern-day brigade crossing the continent? Both Vancouvers were terminal cities, both the largest centers of industry, commerce, culture, and education. Both were on the mouths of the greatest rivers and territories that were both named Columbia. They were both places of cultural diversity, where Chinook Wawa was widely spoken. Was the new Vancouver meant to be a continuation of the old Vancouver, where the ideals and values of the lost capital might thrive once again?